Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The darkness enveloped the room, a familiar companion in the early morning hours. In a rush of panic, Luca's hand groped for his phone, his savior from the abyss of sleep. The screen's glow was blinding as he squinted at the time. 7:45 a.m. He inwardly cursed the silence of his alarm, a potential culprit for this morning's chaos. He hated to be late, especially today, when his professional fate might be decided. As he threw off his blankets, Luca's movements were a blur of coordinated haste. He had to be downtown in less than an hour, a challenge made more formidable by the 20-minute commute. Their apartment arrangement worked perfectly. They rarely crossed paths, shared expenses comfortably, and maintained a respectful distance while being friendly enough to occasionally share takeout on their rare, overlapping free evenings. The bedroom remained pitch black, heavy blackout curtains keeping out any hint of morning light, a necessity for Evangeline's irregular sleep schedule. Luca dared not turn on the light. His navy suit should be hanging where he'd left it last night, pressed and ready. Bare feet padded across the cold hardwood. Fingers reached out, finding the closet door, then the hanging clothes. Fabric rustled as he pulled what felt like his suit from the hanger and gathered what seemed to be a white shirt, underwear from his drawer, then to the bathroom to rush through his morning routine. 15 minutes later, still half asleep and functioning on autopilot, Luca stepped out of the bathroom and dressed in the dark. The clothes felt strangely different. The pants oddly tight around his hips, the shirt's material softer than expected, but in his haste, he attributed the sensation to his lingering grogginess. He grabbed his watch, wallet, and keys from the dresser, slid his feet into what he thought were his dress shoes, waiting by the door, and quietly left the apartment. Only in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the elevator did Luca begin to sense something was amiss. The shoes pinched strangely, and the hem of his pants felt unusually high above his ankles. He glanced down. Horror froze him in place. Instead of his tailored navy suit pants, a navy pencil skirt hugged his hips. His eyes traveled up to find not his crisp white button-down, but Evangeline's silky white blouse. And on his feet, nude heels, approximately 3 inches high. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Luca remained paralyzed. "Hold the door!" called a voice from across the lobby. Instinctively, Luca's hand shot out to stop the doors from closing. An elderly neighbor stepped in, nodding gratefully. "Thank you, dear," she said with a warm smile. "You look lovely today." The doors closed before Luca could process what had happened. The woman had called him dear and complimented his appearance, without a hint of confusion or shock. Panic bubbled in his chest. He glanced at his watch. 8:10. No time to go back upstairs, change, and make it to the meeting. He would have to call in sick, make up an excuse. His phone buzzed. A text from his boss. "Counting on you for the Henderson presentation. They're particularly interested in your market analysis." The Henderson account was worth millions to the firm. This meeting could determine his entire career trajectory. Luca closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The doors opened to the building's main floor. He had a choice to make. The subway car rattled along the tracks as Luca, perched awkwardly on the edge of his seat, scrolled through his presentation notes. Every few seconds, his eyes darted up, certain everyone was staring at him. Yet no one seemed to notice anything unusual. He had tucked his wallet and phone into the surprisingly functional pockets of the skirt. The blouse, thankfully, wasn't particularly revealing. Evangeline preferred conservative workwear, though it hung differently on his frame than it would on hers. What truly bewildered him was how normal he felt. After the initial shock, he had discovered he could walk in the heels without stumbling. The gentle sway of the skirt against his legs felt peculiarly freeing. Even the soft material of the blouse against his skin provided an unexpected comfort. His stop approached. Gathering his courage, Luca stood and made his way to the doors. The gentle click-clack of heels against the subway floor sounded foreign to his ears, yet his balance remained steady. "Excuse me," he murmured as he squeezed past other passengers. A man stepped aside, offering a polite smile. "Of course, miss." Miss. The word echoed in Luca's mind as he stepped onto the platform. People were seeing him as a woman. Stepping onto the escalator, he caught his reflection in the mirrored wall of the station. The brown hair he'd hastily combed back now framed his face softly, giving him a feminine appearance he'd never noticed before. His features, always on the delicate side, took on a new context in combination with the women's clothing. The overall effect was convincing. Outside the station, the crisp morning air hit his face. The Henderson meeting loomed just blocks away. He couldn't go in looking like this. Could he? His phone buzzed again. His boss. "Where are you? Henderson's arrived early." Luca stared at the message, heart pounding. Then, on impulse, he texted back. "Just around the corner. Be there in 5. Decision made, he strode toward the office building, heels clicking confidently against the pavement. The elevator to the 28th floor felt like the longest ride of his life. Luca, or whoever he was about to become, rehearsed in his mind. If he was going through with this, he needed a name. His mind flickered to the clothes he wore. Evangeline. He could be Evangeline for the day. The doors slid open, revealing the sleek reception area of Morgan and Patel Financial Advisors. Marjorie, the receptionist, looked up with a welcoming smile. "Good morning. Are you here for the Henderson meeting?" Luca cleared his throat, pitching his voice slightly higher. "Yes, I am." "You must be from the analytics department. They mentioned someone would be joining." Marjorie handed over a visitor badge. "The meeting's just getting started in the main conference room." Luca clipped the badge to the blouse. "Thank you." The conference room door loomed ahead. Through the glass, he could see his boss, Gerald Patel, standing at the head of the table, gesturing animatedly. The Hendersons, husband and wife team who had built an empire in sustainable housing, sat attentively. Luca took a deep breath and pushed the door open. All eyes turned to him. "Ah, there you are," Gerald said, barely glancing up. "Just in time for the market projection segment." Luca stood frozen for a beat, then moved toward the empty chair. "Everyone," Gerald continued, "this is our market analyst who prepared the portfolio diversification strategy for your consideration." This was it, the moment of truth. Luca extended his hand toward Mr. Henderson. "Evangeline Moore, pleased to meet you." The words fell from his lips with surprising ease, as though he'd been practicing them all his life. Mr. Henderson shook his hand firmly. "Marcus Henderson! This is my wife, Diana." Diana Henderson smiled warmly. "That's a beautiful blouse. The cut highlights your features perfectly." "Thank you," Luca, now Evangeline, replied, a flush warming his cheeks. "I find the right clothing makes all the difference in how we present ourselves professionally." The words surprised him as they came out. Where had that confidence emerged from? Gerald nodded approvingly. Evangeline will take us through the market projections for the next segment. Settling into his seat, Luca opened his portfolio. The analysis was the same one he'd prepared over the past weeks. His work, his research, his recommendations. Only the presenter had changed. Standing before the room, he began his presentation. His voice, slightly higher than usual but not forced, flowed naturally. The Hendersons nodded along, asking occasional questions that Luca answered with growing confidence. "As you can see from these projections," he explained, gesturing to the chart displayed on the screen, "diversifying into these emerging markets offers both stability and growth potential for your portfolio." Mrs. Henderson leaned forward. "And you're confident about the ethical sourcing aspects of these investments? That's paramount to our brand." "Absolutely," Luca responded, turning to the appropriate section of his report. "I've compiled comprehensive data on the ESG ratings for each recommended investment. You'll note that each exceeds industry standards for environmental and social governance." The presentation continued smoothly. When it concluded, both Hendersons nodded with approval. "Impressive work, Evangeline," Mr. Henderson said. "Your analysis addresses exactly the concerns we came in with today." "We'd like to move forward," Mrs. Henderson added. "Gerald, have your team draw up the paperwork." Gerald's face broke into a broad smile. "Excellent! Evangeline will coordinate with our legal department to get everything in order." After handshakes and promises to follow up, the Hendersons departed. Gerald turned to Luca with an expression of barely contained excitement. "That was brilliant work," he said. "I don't believe we've worked together before, but I'd like to have you involved in more of our premium client presentations. Your approach resonated perfectly with them." Luca blinked, momentarily at a loss. "Thank you, sir. I'm glad the presentation was well received." "It wasn't just well received. It closed the deal." Gerald clapped him on the shoulder. "Are you free for lunch? I'd like to discuss your future with the firm." The surreality of the situation threatened to overwhelm Luca. He was being praised as Evangeline, offered advancement opportunities, all while dressed in his roommate's clothes. "That sounds wonderful," he heard himself say. "I'll just need a moment to refresh before lunch." In the privacy of the restroom, the women's restroom, which he entered after a moment's hesitation, Luca stared at his reflection. The person looking back at him was both familiar and foreign. His brown hair, usually kept short and professional, somehow framed his face in a way that softened his features. The white blouse accentuated his slender build, while the navy skirt created the illusion of curves. But it was his expression that gave him pause. There was a comfort there, a natural ease he rarely saw in his own face. He looked happy. The realization struck him with unexpected force. Wearing these clothes, being seen as Evangeline, felt right in a way he couldn't explain. Lunch with Gerald proved illuminating. The restaurant, an upscale bistro frequented by the firm's executives, welcomed Evangeline warmly. The maitre d' pulled out her chair, the waiter addressed her with deference, and Gerald treated her with the professional respect reserved for valued colleagues. "Your insight into the Henderson portfolio was exactly what we needed," Gerald said between bites of his salmon. "They particularly appreciated your attention to the ethical investment angles." Luca nodded, growing increasingly comfortable in his temporary identity. "I find clients are increasingly concerned with not just returns, but the social impact of their investments." "Precisely," Gerald agreed. "Which is why I'd like you to head up our new ESG initiative. We're establishing a dedicated division to focus on socially responsible investing, and I think you'd be perfect to lead it." The offer was incredible, precisely the kind of advancement opportunity Luca had been hoping for. Yet here it was, being offered not to him, but to Evangeline. "That's a tremendous opportunity," Luca said carefully. "Though I should mention my background." "No need for modesty," Gerald interrupted. "Your work speaks for itself. We'll announce the new position next week. In the meantime, I'd like you to prepare a presentation outlining your vision for the department." As lunch concluded, Luca found himself agreeing to Gerald's proposals, accepting a promotion and increased responsibility, all as someone he hadn't been when he woke up that morning. Walking back to the office, the afternoon sun warm on his face, Luca contemplated his predicament. The day would end eventually. He would return home, change back into his own clothes, and then what? Explain to Gerald that Evangeline didn't exist? That it had all been a mistake? A case of grabbed the wrong clothes in the dark? Yet with each click of heels against pavement, the idea of returning to his former self felt increasingly distant. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and introductions. Word of the Henderson success had traveled quickly, and Evangeline found herself welcomed into circles that had previously seemed impenetrable to Luca. Senior partners stopped by her temporary desk to offer congratulations. Female colleagues invited her to lunch the following week. At 5 o'clock, as the office began to empty, Luca gathered his belongings. The workday was over, but the charade continued. He couldn't simply walk into the apartment as Evangeline without explanation. His phone buzzed with a text from his actual roommate. "Working double shift. Won't be home until tomorrow afternoon. There's leftover pasta if you want it." The message provided an unexpected reprieve. With Evangeline working overnight, Luca had time to return home, change, and figure out his next steps without immediate confrontation. On the subway ride home, he caught his reflection in the window. After a full day, his appearance had taken on an even more feminine quality. He had unconsciously adopted certain mannerisms, crossing his legs at the knee, gesturing more expressively with his hands, tilting his head slightly when listening. Most striking was how natural it all felt. The discomfort he'd anticipated wearing women's clothing never materialized. Instead, he found a strange comfort, as though he'd been wearing an ill-fitting suit his entire life and had finally changed into something that properly fit. Back at the apartment, Luca unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space looked different somehow, viewed through his day's experiences. He moved to the bedroom, flipping on the light, something he couldn't do that morning, and opened the closet. There hung his navy suit, exactly where he'd left it. Next to it, Evangeline's workwear section, now missing the items he currently wore. He should change, return to normal, put this strange day behind him. Instead, he found himself drawn to the other side of the closet, Evangeline's side. His fingers brushed against the various fabrics, silks, cottons, wools, all cut and styled for a woman's body. Each garment represented a choice he'd never considered available to him. Luca sat on the edge of the bed, heels still on, skirt smoothed beneath him. The person he'd been that morning seemed distant now, like a character in a half-remembered dream. In his place sat someone new, someone who had succeeded in ways Luca had only aspired to, who had been offered opportunities Luca had worked toward for years, someone who felt right in her own skin for perhaps the first time. The decision crystallized with unexpected clarity. Tomorrow, Evangeline would return to the office, not out of necessity or convenience, but by choice. The alarm sounded at 6:30 a.m. This time, Luca, or rather, Evangeline, as she had decided to think of herself, woke immediately. She had slept fitfully, mind racing with the implications of her decision, yet felt more energized than she had in years. With Evangeline, the roommate, still at the hospital for another several hours, the apartment belonged to the new Evangeline. She took her time in the shower, shampooing her brown hair thoroughly, noticing how it had grown slightly longer than her usual style over the past month. A fortuitous coincidence that now worked in her favor. Standing before the closet, lights fully on, Evangeline surveyed her options. Her roommate's wardrobe was extensive and professional, perfect for the office. She selected a burgundy pencil skirt, a cream-colored silk blouse, and black heels slightly lower than yesterday's. Dressing deliberately this time, she noticed details she'd missed in yesterday's rush. How the skirt hugged her hips, creating the illusion of feminine curves. How the blouse draped softly across her chest. How the entire ensemble transformed her body into something that felt authentically her own. The makeup presented a greater challenge. Evangeline, the roommate, kept her cosmetics organized on her vanity. The new Evangeline had observed women applying makeup countless times, but had never attempted it herself. She opted for minimalism, foundation to smooth her skin tone, mascara to emphasize her naturally long lashes, and a neutral lipstick. The result, while amateur, proved effective enough. She didn't look polished, but she looked presentable. A woman who preferred a natural look rather than heavy cosmetics. Grabbing a small purse from her roommate's collection, she transferred her essentials from his wallet. Her Metro card, ID, which thankfully showed only her last name and an old photo that could pass as ambiguous, credit card, and cash. The photo ID might raise questions eventually, but she'd cross that bridge when necessary. The morning commute felt entirely different from the previous day. Where yesterday she had hunched with anxious energy, today she sat with shoulders relaxed, legs crossed at the knee, observing her fellow passengers with newfound awareness. A woman across the aisle caught her eye and smiled approvingly. "Love that blouse. Great color on you." "Thank you," Evangeline replied, the higher register of her voice coming more naturally now. "It's one of my favorites." The casual interaction, so simple yet so affirming, buoyed her confidence as she arrived at the office. Marjorie greeted her warmly at reception. "Good morning, Evangeline. Gerald asked to see you first thing." In Gerald's office, the news exceeded all expectations. "The Hendersons signed the contract this morning," he announced, beaming. "They specifically mentioned your presentation as the deciding factor. They appreciated your fresh perspective and authentic approach." Evangeline smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through her chest. "I'm thrilled to hear that. I really connected with their vision." "Which is exactly why I want to fast-track your promotion," Gerald continued, sliding a folder across his desk. "This outlines the new position, Senior Director of Sustainable Investment Strategies. Review the details, but I hope you'll accept." Opening the folder, Evangeline scanned the document. The salary figure caused her breath to catch, nearly double what she earned as Luca. "This is very generous," she managed. Gerald leaned back in his chair. "We value talent here, Evangeline. Your approach to the Henderson account demonstrated exactly the vision we need moving forward." He paused, studying her. "Though I must say, if you don't mind the observation, you seem different today. More yourself." The comment struck a chord of truth so profound that Evangeline felt momentarily dizzy. "I feel more myself," she admitted. "Well, it suits you." Gerald stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to the executive team." The following weeks passed in a blur of activity. Evangeline established herself firmly in her new role, developing strategies that quickly gained traction both within the firm and among clients. Her fresh perspective, attributed by colleagues to her gender in a male-dominated industry, actually stemmed from the unique vantage point of someone seeing the world through new eyes. The practical challenges of her transformation required creative solutions. She purchased her own wardrobe, selecting pieces that flattered her figure while maintaining professional appropriateness. She watched countless makeup tutorials online, practicing until she achieved a natural, polished look. She trained her voice to maintain its feminine quality consistently. The most complex aspect remained her living situation. Her roommate, the original Evangeline, worked such irregular hours that their paths rarely crossed, but the arrangement couldn't last indefinitely. Eventually, questions would arise about the missing clothes, the new makeup on the vanity, the gradual changes to Luca's appearance. 4 weeks after her transformation began, an opportunity presented itself. Her roommate left a note on the kitchen counter. Taking travel nursing assignment in Seattle. 3 months. Need to sublet or find replacement roommate. Know anyone interested? That evening, Evangeline crafted a careful response. I have a cousin moving to the city for work. She could take over your room while you're gone. Might be interested in something permanent if things work out. The deception didn't sit well with her, but it bought precious time. 3 months to establish her new identity more firmly, to make necessary legal changes, to find her own place if needed. Her roommate's reply came the next morning. Perfect. Have her move in whenever. Taking early flight tomorrow. Left key and rental agreement on counter. Just like that, Evangeline had the apartment to herself, time and space to complete her metamorphosis without scrutiny or explanation. The quarterly numbers look exceptional, Gerald announced at the executive meeting. Evangeline's sustainable investment division has outperformed projections by 17%. 6 months had passed since that fateful morning. Evangeline now occupied a corner office with views of the city skyline. Her brown hair, grown out to shoulder length, framed a face that had softened further with specialized skincare routines and subtle contouring techniques she'd mastered. Her wardrobe consisted entirely of carefully selected pieces that complemented her figure and projected the confidence she now genuinely felt. Thank you, Gerald, she responded, smiling at her colleagues around the table. We've seen particularly strong performance in the renewable energy sector, which aligns perfectly with our clients' increasing focus on climate-conscious investing. After the meeting, Catherine, the firm's HR director, pulled her aside. Evangeline, do you have a moment? There's a small administrative matter we need to address. In Catherine's office, the issue became clear. It seems we're missing some of your documentation, Catherine explained, peering at her computer screen. Nothing major, just standard compliance paperwork, but I noticed your employee file doesn't contain all the usual identification records. Evangeline's heart quickened. This moment had been inevitable, though she'd hoped to delay it longer. Actually, Catherine, there's something I should discuss with you. She took a steadying breath. I've recently begun a gender transition. My legal documentation is in process of being updated. The words hung in the air between them. Catherine looked up, expression softening. I see, she said gently. Thank you for sharing that with me. We should update your records to reflect your current name and gender identity. You're not surprised? Evangeline asked. Catherine smiled. Evangeline, our firm prides itself on cultivating talent, not conformity. Your work these past months has been exceptional. That's what matters to us. She tapped a few keys on her keyboard. I'll update your file to indicate documentation pending update. When your legal papers are processed, we'll complete the records. Relief washed over Evangeline. Thank you for understanding. Of course. Catherine said. And please know that the firm offers comprehensive healthcare benefits that include transition-related care, should you need them. Walking back to her office, Evangeline felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The final barrier, the fear of professional rejection, had dissolved. Her new reality was not just a temporary masquerade, but a sustainable future. 1 year after that life-changing morning, Evangeline stood before the mirror in her new apartment. The spacious downtown loft, afforded by her executive salary, reflected her refined aesthetic, clean lines, warm textures, and abundant natural light. Her transformation had progressed beyond mere appearance. Legal documents now confirmed what she had known that first day in the office. She was Evangeline Morgan, through and through. Her driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, all bore her true name and gender marker. The brown hair that framed her face now fell past her shoulders in soft waves, grown naturally over the months. Her figure had softened through targeted exercise and hormone therapy. The woman who gazed back from the mirror was no longer playing a role, but living authentically. A knock at the door interrupted her reflection. Opening it revealed Diane Henderson, no longer just a client, but a friend and mentor. "Ready for the panel?" Diane asked, stepping inside. "The Women in Finance Summit expects record attendance this year." Evangeline gathered her portfolio. "As ready as I'll ever be. Still can't believe they asked me to keynote." "Believe it," Diane replied. "Your sustainable investment strategies have revolutionized the industry. People want to hear from the woman behind the innovation." As they rode the elevator down to the waiting car, Diane studied her. "You seem different today. More settled somehow." Evangeline smiled. "It's been exactly 1 year since I became who I am now," she explained. "A year since I stopped playing a role and started living truthfully." "Anniversaries are powerful," Diane nodded. "Worth celebrating." In the sleek auditorium filled with hundreds of finance professionals, Evangeline approached the podium with confident steps. Her navy dress, a deliberate echo of that first accidental pencil skirt, moved elegantly with each step. "Thank you all for the warm welcome," she began, surveying the attentive faces. "My journey in sustainable finance began with an unexpected transformation." As she spoke, weaving the story of her professional rise alongside carefully edited hints of her personal metamorphosis, Evangeline felt profound gratitude for that morning a year ago. A simple mistake, grabbing the wrong clothes in a darkened room, had inadvertently revealed the person she was always meant to be. "Authenticity," she concluded, "proves the most valuable asset in both life and business. When we align our outward expression with our inner truth, we discover untapped potential and unexpected paths forward." The audience rose in standing ovation. Evangeline accepted their appreciation with a graceful nod, no longer surprised by the woman she had become, but endlessly grateful for the chance to discover her. The brown-haired woman who descended from the stage moved with a natural confidence, not the practiced performance of her early days, but the genuine self-assurance of someone fully at home in her own skin. The journey from Luca to Evangeline had been unpredictable, challenging, and ultimately transformative, resulting not just in a change of clothes or name or appearance, but in the emergence of her authentic self. The mistake that morning had not been putting on women's clothes. It had been spending decades dressed as someone she wasn't. Now, every morning when she opened her closet and selected the day's outfit, Evangeline smiled at the perfect rightness of cream blouses and pencil skirts, of feminine silhouettes and delicate fabrics. This was who she had always been, waiting to be discovered in the darkness of a bedroom before dawn. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!